Thanks for downloading another segment from the Best of the Classic Metal Show. The Classic Metal Show is heard live on Saturdays from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com. And now here's another piece of Classic Metal Show history on the Best of the Classic Metal Show.
The Classic Metal Show.
That's Badlands right here on your Classic Metal Show. That's The Streets Cry Freedom. And, well, Chris, I guess you set me up another time with another mystery guest.
And I have to say, this is probably the one I am most excited about that we have done so far. I mean, and we've done some good ones. I mean, Simon Wright was a good one, and, yeah, they've all been good ones, Simon being the biggest one. I'm going to say this guy, even bigger.
Really? Very nice.
The only hint I'm gonna give you, this is the one and only hint, and then I'll let you go from there. And mystery guest, please tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm gonna say that this mystery guest has been a part of, I'm gonna say 30 million records sold. Am I correct there?
More.
How many more? Let's get an accurate number. 50 million.
Okay. Last count. Well, the last one we did was right at 50 million.
So, wow. 50
Wow.
million records. So there you go. This is a big one.
Wow, I guess so. Well, let me think. So are you a vocalist?
No.
Are you a guitarist?
No.
How about a drummer?
No, I don't really like musicians.
Oh, really? So you're not a musician? Are you a producer?
Could be.
Oh, you could be a producer. Let me think.
Am I supposed to tell the truth, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
I mean, that's
tell the truth.
Okay. Yes, I am a producer.
Oh, okay, a producer, and you've been involved with at least 50 million sold. I'm going to assume that probably you were most notable in the 80s. Yes? No?
Partially.
Partially in the 80s. So you produced records in through the 80s and through the 90s, maybe even currently, from what I know.
Yes.
Okay. So, let's see. Have you worked with Skid Row?
No.
Have you ever worked with Dokken?
No.
That's interesting. Wow. How about RATT?
Getting warmer.
Getting warmer. Would this be Beau Hill?
See, that wasn't hard at all.
Well, I had to narrow it down.
You had to go through the process.
Right. Wow. How about that? Well, welcome to the Classic Metal Show there, Beau.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, it's very cool that we got you on the show. How did you hook up with Beau, Chris?
I'm going to tell you exactly how. I was reading on the MySpace. I get posts from every band known to man, and I got a post from our friends over in Bombay Black.
Right.
That said that they were working with Beau Hill, and I just started doing a little bit of searching on the web, and I threw an email to Beau, and he got right back to me. So, we are definitely honored to have you, sir.
Wow.
Awesome.
Well, how about that? Well, one of our favorite guests and a friend of the show is Stephen Pearcy. And we've actually had conversations about you and the fact that you did produce, some of their most notable songs and records. And he basically indicated that as a producer, you were like the sixth member of RATT.
Well, it was very kind of him.
He said that you had a lot of input as far as not only did you produce the records and songs, but you had a lot of input in the writing and, all kinds of stuff. How much truth is there to that?
Quite a bit. I co-wrote a fair amount of the singles that we had and a few that weren't singles. And Stephen and I sort of crafted the way that we presented Stephen to the rest of the world, and it was a little bit unorthodox, but we sort of tapped into it a bit on the first record, and then just grew on that for the next 3 albums, and it kind of seemed to work. So it was It was an unorthodox way of working. That's the only thing that I can say. But we got through it.
Absolutely. Now, Beau, looking at your your massive discography of records that you've done, and it's clearly massive. It's interesting to me to note that with so many of these groups, you did their best albums, and then right when they started to fall off, so to speak, or at least they fell off commercially, was at the exact same time that you jumped off the bandwagon. RATT, Warrant, Winger, all three of those, just off the top of my head. You did their biggest stuff, and then you either you moved on or they moved on. Do you look?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Either I jumped off the bandwagon or I got pushed.
Well, why does that happen? I mean, everybody knows the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it clearly seems like people were trying to fix something that wasn't broke.
That's the $65,000 question right there. And I'm not sure I'm smart enough to give you a clear and precise answer. Sometimes it's you just need a new girlfriend, I guess.
Okay.
Sometimes you just need to kind of get the creative juices going in a different way. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and that's part of the game that we're all in this business, in the production side anyway, is to be true to your fans and yet be able to have a little bit of development with your artist at the same time. And I think we had great success with Winger, RATT, and Warrant in particular, because our debut albums with those bands were so successful that we really created the branding, if you will, with that first record. And if you liked the record, well, then that's what you wanted forever, kind of. And if you didn't like the record, well, then you didn't like the record. But we had such an intense fan base with those three particular artists that I guess when the core team moved on to do other things, perhaps the net result of the new sound wasn't something that the hardcore fans really wanted, and they kind of moved on as well.
Sure. The one that kind of doesn't follow that pattern, though, I guess, would be Warrant, because unless I'm mistaken, you did Ultraphobic as well, right?
I did, but there was the Dog Eat Dog album in between that.
Okay.
And I didn't do that one, and that's when Warrant left Sony, was after that record.
Sure.
And and by that point the industry had definitely changed as it does.
Sure. Absolutely, man. Well, with Ultraphobic, what I'm curious about is, that record specifically for Warrant fans, I mean, it is so 1,000 degrees different than what they were doing previously. It's almost like their attempt at grunge type of music. When they approached you and you heard the songs the first time, I mean, were you into it, or were you just like, woo, this is something, let's take a chance with this? Or how do you approach something that's so drastically different from a product that you actually helped build in the first place?
Well, to be completely honest, Warrant and myself and a lot of other bands and very talented producers and engineers kind of all got painted with the same brush. When grunge came in, we all got pushed under the bus, some more severely than others, but all of us got pushed under to a certain extent. And, you have to be able to evaluate the marketplace and see where you're at and go, okay, what we did in, 1990 or 1989 isn't working right now, so we need to go and let's try something else. And we did, and we had a great time doing it, and it was a departure, but I think if we would have tried to come out with Cherry Pie Part 2, it wouldn't have worked at all. I don't think that the marketplace was very receptive to that type of music, and of course, Janie and those guys weren't writing that kind of stuff at that time because, you know, they were in the same position that everybody else was, going, okay, how do we keep our audience, or how do we get our audience back?
Well, Beau, I got to ask you, back in the 80s, you know, the decadent 80s, you know, there were so many great bands out there that were actually getting radio play, and you know, they were on the big tours, big arena tours, and there was like a big rivalry out there among these bands. Well, there was also some huge producers, you being one of them, Ted Templeman, Michael Wagner, Neil Kernan, you know, just to name a few. Was there any rivalry between producers?
That's a great question. I'm sure that there probably was, but as producers, we were pretty insulated from one another. I mean, obviously, we were all chasing certain acts, and you know, Neil Kernan would get one that I wanted, and I'd get one that he wanted, I'm sure.
Right.
But as far as, you know, we were always in the studio and working, and a lot of these guys I didn't meet until many years later. So I guess my answer would have to be, of course, there was a rivalry just to get a hot new band. But, you know, I don't think there was anything untoward going on between any of us.
Right, definitely.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool.
So, no, I mean, there certainly wasn't the drama on the producer level that you would read about in the rock mags about, you know, so-and-so slagged off so-and-so's singer and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
No, we didn't get into that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, I got to ask you, Beau, since the 80s was such a, you know, epic time for, you know, a lot of these bands, and then, you know, in the 90s, of course, people went more for the stripped-down grunge garage sound. And now, of course, today, you know, 20 some odd years later, how has recording and producing a band changed over this 20 years? I mean, with the invent of Pro Tools and, you know, not, you know, doing analog stuff, you know, so much anymore, is producing easier or harder these days?
Another great question. You guys have done this before, right?
No, absolutely not. We're just big fans.
You're
our first interview ever, Beau. Honestly.
Right. Well, okay. The first thing is obviously the budget.
Sure.
For the most part, nowadays, the financial responsibilities fall squarely on the shoulders of the artist. And that changes the landscape considerably. So the idea of going into a studio and paying $2,000 a day and sitting in there for 3 months is just not a reality for 97% of the artists that are out there today. And Pro Tools and the whole digital media has helped to make it more cost-effective and faster, just simply because if you can imagine it in the digital domain, you can probably do it. And you can do it much faster than you ever could have done cutting tape and splicing and, you know, flipping reels of tape to get special effects and things of that nature. The other thing that's made it particularly interesting, and I didn't really embrace this at first, but I really do now, is the idea that you don't send tapes to anybody, you send files over the internet. And so, since I'm an admitted neophyte in the internet world, but within the last year when I launched my website and MySpace and all that stuff, I've had an opportunity to mix and produce bands from all over the world, which has been quite fun and very enlightening because, you know, kids in Slovenia are very into different things than kids in Kansas.
Right.
And it's great for me, and it's really broadened my horizons a lot to see how the record business has changed around the world, and people that bought records that I have worked on, in Eastern Europe, for example, they have a completely different take on it than people in the States or people in Japan. And they pick up weird little nuances in the music that I never really considered. But, as I email back and forth with these people, they're asking me questions. Hey, what about this? And how'd you do that? And how about this? And that also has been very interesting to sort of see on a more global scale how these big records have affected kids now for, 15 years, 20 years in some cases.
Absolutely. I'm curious, Beau, as far as, since we're talking about the production side of it a little bit, is it frustrating even a little bit for a guy like you, who clearly the resume speaks for itself. Again, 50 million records sold. That's a resume that you and about maybe, 10 guys in the whole world have? There's just not many people that have done that. But yet I see constantly online where a record was produced by, the guitar player of Pretty Boy Floyd, or just, the bassist from Warrant, or whoever doing right. Production now. Is that frustrating that the musicians now think that they don't need that extra ear as well as the production skill in a lot of cases to produce their records today? Yeah, certainly. It's frustrating to a certain extent, but again, I think that's an economic consequence. If a guy sits in a studio with me and makes 2 records with me, if they're astute at all, and I like to say that all the artists that I have been lucky enough to work with are pretty smart guys, they're absorbing all the stuff that they see going down on their record, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything, and everybody's putting it in their own storage unit, and creatively they're going to draw on that experience. So on the one hand, just because you wake up one morning and say, well, I was a bass player yesterday and today I'm going to be a producer, doesn't necessarily make you a producer. But if you've been in the trenches with somebody like me, then you're picking up all kinds of stuff. Probably most of the stuff that you never want to do, but nonetheless, you're picking up some stuff. And yeah, you could go in and say, okay, I know I've watched people get out of this particular problem before, or I think we should take it in this particular direction. And I don't know if it's so much frustrating for me, but again, it's an economic consequence. The bass player of a band is probably, or the perception would be, that he is going to be less expensive than me. Right.
And so that's kind of what drives that engine a little bit, I think.
Sure, Beau. I don't know if you've followed this story or not, but I think it was last week that Tom Weirman had a little war of the words going on with Nikki Sixx over some of the things that Nikki wrote in his Heroin Diaries book about some of the shenanigans that went on in the studio back then.
Uh-huh.
Did you read or hear anything about that?
No, I haven't. I haven't at all.
Oh, okay. Well, if you had heard about it, I was going to ask you to maybe comment on it. But, yeah, one of the things that Nikki was saying was that Tom basically didn't do anything on their Girls records and their Theater of Pain records, that basically all he did was just sit in the studio and yap on the phone all day, and Nikki and the boys did all the work.
Uh-huh.
And, Tom came out and said, if that was the case, why did you hire me for, a second and a third record if all I did was just sit there and do nothing, and you paid me, X amount of dollars just to sit there and talk on the phone? And I guess Nikki, said, well, I think your memory is clouded too. Maybe I should inform your wife about some of your shenanigans you pulled while you were in the studio, that kind of that kind of a thing,
Oh, that sounds like a real cat fight to me.
Yeah, it was. But I'm sure you saw your share of decadence back then, in the studio. Any particular stories that, without getting too, singling out anybody that you could possibly maybe tell us about?
You're really trying to get me in trouble here. Well, first of all, I want you to know that every record I ever did with every artist, we were in church, 8 o'clock Sunday morning, every Saturday night. Everybody went home, 9 o'clock, went right home to their wives and or girlfriends. There were never any extracurricular activities at the studio, not at all. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Nice.
Very nice.
Well, no, the truth of the matter is, it was absolutely the most fantastic time to be in a creative endeavor, and you had the best and the worst of it. You had sex, drugs, rock and roll, and then you had successful young guys with a lot of money.
Right.
And that's a recipe for a certain kind of disaster potentially.
Sure. Right.
The only thing that I can say is that of course, we had every crazy thing go on that you could possibly imagine. But we tried to, I tried to rein it in as much as possible, and I became very unpopular with most of the artists that I worked with, for the one simple reason that my philosophy was, look, we're spending your money and we're spending my money, because I don't go into a positive recouped royalty position until the production costs are paid off, just like the band.
Sure.
Right.
And so when we're sitting in there in a studio that's costing $2,000 a day, and I've got, hungover musicians that are in their hotel room with their head on a block of ice, that's not doing anybody any good. And so one of the things that I tried to do early on, and again, I'm the first one to say that this was kind of universally very unpopular, but my sessions started at 10 o'clock in the morning. And that was like, I want your instruments on, tuned, eat breakfast, call your girlfriend, have a cup of coffee, do whatever you want to do, but at 10 o'clock we start work. And then at a reasonable hour, in most cases, I don't want to be too absolute about this, but at a reasonable hour, 7, 8 o'clock at night, we'd go home. Time for dinner, go home, have a glass of wine, unwind, go see a band, do whatever you want to do, get a good night's sleep, and we'll come in and do it again tomorrow.
Wow. And you were able to convince Stephen Pearcy to be up and ready at 10 a.m., huh?
Well, no, and here's the caveat with that. All the singers got a pass because nobody's warmed up at 10 in the morning, especially not Stephen.
Right.
But there were times when Stephen would come in at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and he'd have to be ready to go. It just depended on how the schedule was. And also, as a producer, you learn the habits of your guys, and so you want to create a situation where you're getting the very best out of them, not the very worst. And with the main exception of just getting everybody up and getting them to the studio and wake up and let's go to work, I really tried to tailor it mainly to the singers, just because of the physical characteristics of the voice and all that stuff. That was really about it. I mean, I took the financial end of this very seriously, and because I didn't want to get a reputation of always going over budget on records. And
right.
Selfishly for myself, I am useless after about 9 o'clock at night. And
Okay.
And after many, many years of trying to pull all-nighters and do all kinds of crazy stuff, I finally had to realize that I was just a day guy. And
Right.
that's when I did my best work. I got the most amount of work done in the shortest period of time, which was best for my artist. It's no good if I'm sitting there in a coma on the with my head on the console, because I'm not doing anybody any good then. And so a lot of this was just me finally recognizing what my own best time of day energy-wise was. And then I just had to come clean with everybody and say, look, if you want me to do the record, these are the hours that I work, because I'll do my best work for you under these circumstances. And some people liked it, and most people didn't, but they hired me anyway.
Sure, absolutely. Well, Beau, moving forward to the future here, or to the present, I guess, it seems like the musical style from the 80s is somewhat making a comeback, not as big and pompous as it was in the 80s, but definitely, just melodic hard rock is making its way back, and it seems like you're right in the middle of it again. I mean, some of the bands that you're working with right now, Lynam, for one, I believe is going out with Lynch Mob and Cinderella this year, and End Ever After is getting quite a bit of push from Sony, and I believe you did that record as well. Are you noticing that trend as well, where that style of music is, maybe starting to be cool again after a long period of time where everybody just looked at it as like, 80s metal?
Yeah, well, just full disclosure, I just mixed one single on the End Ever After record.
Okay, but that's the single, right?
Baby. Yeah. Yes, I think it is. But what happens is that it's morphing. It's not exactly kind of as it was. So sure. There's still some elements of kind of grungy, alternative, but definitely vocally and harmonically, I think that's becoming more in vogue and more popular, and it's happening on a global basis. I mean, if you go to my website, you'll see that I've done some mixes from bands from Slovenia, Brazil, Japan. It's crazy, and there really is kind of a common thread, all done stylistically differently, but there's definitely, you're right, yeah, there's a bit of a resurgence happening, for sure.
Cool, Beau.
I'm also hearing guitar solos again, and some excellent players that have tremendous facility and unique styles, which has been missing to my ear anyway for quite a while. Sure. And that's good to hear.
Absolutely. Well, Beau, you are the first producer. I think you are the first producer we've ever had on the show, which is very cool. But I've been waiting for years, since 2003, to ask this question of a producer.
Okay.
With your ear and your skill, and clearly you have that. What the hell happened to Metallica's Saint Anger?
Oh God.
I mean, as a producer or as a listener, everybody has to agree. I'm not even going to try and get you to say, it's bad or anything like that. It is what it is. I, for the life of me, can't figure out how a producer would hear that, though, and say, all right, this is the sound we're looking to achieve. Does that make sense, or am I trying to push you somewhere you don't want to go?
No. I'll walk on the razor's edge here for a second.
Okay.
I think a common misconception is that the producer makes the record. I think that's universally false. It's a collaboration, like it or not.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, I'll lobby like a motherfucker for whatever I feel is really, really important and right. But just because I lobby doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to win. And sometimes, when you make those compromises, it comes out great, and then you've got the Metallica Black Album. And sometimes when you make those compromises, it comes out not so great.
Right.
But I think the key here is that any producer that stands up and holds up his hand and says, I'm singularly responsible for this, I think that's grossly inaccurate. Conversely, anybody that blames it all on the producer, that's inaccurate too, because you're trapped in that space with 4 or 5 guys, and you have the conversations every single day, every single minute of every day of how can we make this better, what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong, what do you think of this, what do you think of that, and ultimately, all the bodies that are in the room and all the principals that are involved in that particular project are going to turn around and they're going to thumbs up and they're going to say, okay, I'll sign off on this. Sometimes it's the right thing to do, sometimes it's not.
Cool, Beau.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Beau, I got to tell you, it's a real thrill to have you here on the Classic Metal Show. We've been doing this for close to 14 years now, and in my mind, your legendary status, especially when it comes to what we consider classic metal, if you will. And where can people find out about Beau Hill on the web?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to be on your show. It's been a real pleasure, and you guys definitely did your homework. You can go to bowhillproductions.com to get to my website, or you can go to Bowhill Music on MySpace.
Excellent.
And you'll get, I try to keep updated clips of everything that I'm working on. I'm usually behind, 3 or 4 groups, but I'll catch up eventually. And you can hear every record that I've ever done. I think there may be 1 or 2 that I didn't get, but there's little clips of everything that I've done, and I put it all up there, the records that were really good and the records that really sucked. So I put them all. It's up there, warts and all, if anybody wants to check it out.
Excellent. One last question there, Beau. Are you still friends with Stephen Pearcy?
Oh, yeah. Stephen and I, I guess it would have been probably right before we got RATT back together, or they got RATT back together. Stephen's mantra to me is he wants RATT to get back together. He wants me to produce again.
Right.
Excellent.
I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but we've talked about it, and Stephen's asked me to work with him on his solo ventures and things like that. So yeah, I'm friendly with Stephen, and those guys they're a part of my life. I mean, we all broke on that same record, and no matter what happens over the course of time, those people, every one of them has a very special place in my heart and in my head. Because we were all there at the same time, and it all happened for all of us at the exact same moment. And I'm very, very grateful for my association with those guys.
Excellent. Well, he did say that he said he stole some of your producing techniques to produce some of his own solo stuff over the years. He said, what he learned from you, he still uses to this day.
Well, I'm glad he said that, because it works for him.
Right.
And he knows better than anybody how we do that process, and he knows how to do it. So I'd say right on, Stephen. Excellent.
All right, Beau. Well, again, we appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us here on the Classic Metal Show. It's been very cool having you a guest, and we always let the artist pick a closing song. We'll consider you an artist, so why don't you pick a song out of something maybe you've produced, and maybe tell us a story about it.
Oh, boy. Okay. Well, it would either have to be Lay It Down or Way Cool Jr.
Okay.
And the story around both of those. Okay, well, we'll do Lay It Down first.
All right.
I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I was still living in an illegal warehouse conversion on the Lower West Side of Manhattan when RATT came through touring, opening for Motley. They were playing the Beacon Theater. They were opening for Motley on the very, very early days of the Out of the Cellar tour. And Warren came over to my hovel, and we were sitting around. I said, okay, play me what you're working on. And so he had his cassettes, and we were racing through them and stuff like that. And there was this one little riff, and he only played it for about 3 seconds, then he went, oh, no, this is nothing, let's just go forward. And I said, wait a second, wait, play that again. And he played me the opening figure to Lay It Down. And I said, that's the one. And originally, after we did the record, and I delivered it to Doug Morris, Doug said, what's your single? And I said, it's got to be Lay It Down. And he said, I agree. It was Lay It Down. So we all went out and we were having our little congratulatory dinner and popping some champagne. Okay, we got our next single for the second album, blah, blah, blah. And then Doug's secretary called me and tracked me down at the restaurant and said that that Doug changed his mind and it needed to be You're in Love. So, we were all devastated by that. But as it turns out, Doug made the right decision. It really, really blasted the record off, and Lay It Down came second and put the icing on the cake, and there you have it.
Excellent. Cool. All right. Well, we appreciate it, Beau. Go over and visit Beau over there at his MySpace, which is what again, Beau? It's
Bowhill Music.
And also,
don't forget, my name is spelled B-E-A-U.
And you can also check him over there at his website at bowhillproductions.com.
That's it.
All right, Beau. Well, we appreciate you taking a few minutes, and let's jump into some RATT here. And this is RATT featuring Beau Hill as producer, and this is Lay It Down exclusively here.
What's on your Classic Metal Show?
What's that? What's
thanks,
that?
Thanks, fellas. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
All right, thanks.
Thanks a lot, Beau.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks for checking out the Best of the Classic Metal Show. You can tune into the Classic Metal Show live every Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com.
The Classic Metal Show.